Well, I hope when the congressman joins us next, he's going to tell me what I am about to say is wrong and it's not going to happen. But it was reported over the weekend. You know, you can get into dangerous territory whenever you get into that. It was reported stuff that new House Speaker Mike Johnson came to a tentative agreement with Chuck Schumer on a $1.6 trillion bill of your money. So while you're paying $6 a pound for burger, apparently nothing is going to slow down at all in Washington, D.C. But let's hope I was misinformed. Joining me now, the new chairman of the wonderful House Freedom Caucus, basically the only people who are worth anything in Washington, D.C., Bob Good of the great state of Virginia. Congressman, okay, tell me what I heard was wrong and that was false reporting and fake news.
Well, Jesse, great to be with you. And I wish I could tell you that you were wrong, but you were right, as you typically are. And unfortunately, it's closer to 1.7 trillion. So last year's omnibus spending bill that we all criticized so much, rightfully so, that was some $1.64 trillion. This would be $1.66 trillion, so about $20 billion higher. So we will be the Republican majority that has increased spending year over year by about $20 billion. Without any exchange of policy wins. So there's two components to spending bills. One, how much money you're spending, or in this case, borrowing. And then secondly, how you're spending the money, what you're trying to accomplish, what you're spending those dollars towards. And there's no reason to believe we're going to have any significant policy wins since we haven't in the past year.
Okay. Can you help all of us, myself included, understand something? Mike Johnson, I've had Mike Johnson on this show before. I know Mike Johnson to be a principled human being from what I know of him, and a staunch conservative, and he has been utterly useless in his 15 minutes as Speaker of the House and has got us nothing. Did something happen to Mike Johnson when he walked into the Speaker's office? Did they do some kind of a lobotomy there? This is not the Mike Johnson I know.
Well, admittedly, we don't have a lot that we can hang our hat on or a lot that we can point to in terms of successful things that have been done in the past 2.5 months or so since he has been Speaker. I would point to the Israel supplemental, standing our ground on that one, that hey, had to be a standalone, it had to be paid for, it wasn't going to be hijacked by funding for Ukraine. You know, almost $100 billion had nothing to do with Israel. That was a win. Releasing more of the January 6th tapes, that was a win. Standing strong so far on H.R. 2 as our border security policy, that is a modest win so far that's been held to. But there's been failures. There's the continuing resolution that was similar to the one that was passed 30 days prior. There was the NDAA, which was basically a Democrat bill without the Republican policy changes. There was the FISA extension, which didn't have the reforms that were necessary. It was just reauthorizing FISA for another 90 days or so without the changes to protect our constitutional freedoms. And then there is this agreement, which is higher than the FRA, Failed Responsibility Act from last summer, that he voted against and most of us voted against, or at least most conservatives voted against, I should say, and that we railed against. But this is some $70 billion higher than the FRA, the debt limit increase that was last summer. And again, we don't have the policy wins in terms of, gosh, if you're going to spend more money, at least be accomplishing Republican policy objectives instead of the Democrat policies that were in place from last year.
Is the House Freedom Caucus getting more powerful? Because Lord knows we need them to get more powerful. We need this caucus to grow and grow and grow, because I can only assume he continues to cut these deals because he doesn't have to worry about the Freedom Caucus. Do I have that wrong?
Well, we've got just really about a 2-vote margin right now. We're going to be a couple of members short this month, and it's very narrow. And essentially, you've got to have every Republican vote for something in order to advance it. However, the House ought to be the stronger of the two legislative bodies. Having the House majority ought to mean something. It ought to result in something where we would at least get half of our priorities accomplished with the House majority. As you know, the Senate has to have 60 votes to advance legislation. They've only got 51 Democrats, so they can't advance anything without 9 Republicans helping them. We don't have that problem in the Republican House. We can pass policy and legislation with just the votes of all Republicans. However, there is a difference among the Republicans. Not every Republican truly wants to cut spending. Not every Republican is truly willing to do whatever it takes to secure our border. Not every Republican is willing to walk away. If you're not willing to walk away from a deal, then you're going to lose in the deal every time.
Congressman, can you help me understand why every Republican doesn't think, I don't need them all to think like me or like you, but why are they not all universally concerned about the spending? This isn't Republican or Democrat, left, right, up. This is simple math. It's not even a prediction. It's not even an opinion. If we don't stop this, we're all going down. And yet nobody seems interested in stopping this. Neither party, I should say. I know individuals like you are. We're all going down if they don't stop.
You're correct that we didn't reach $34 trillion just because of the Democrat Party. Yes, the Democrat Party is better at spending than we are, and they don't even feel bad about it. At least most Republicans feel bad about it, it would seem. But when you're borrowing $200 billion a month, you've got unprecedented debt to GDP. Again, $34 trillion in debt, about a $2.5 trillion deficit on an annual basis now. The interest on the debt's nearly $1 trillion. Doesn't that matter? Don't we really care? How could we be willing to increase spending and not significantly cut spending? Even a year ago, what we were battling over coming out of the speaker battle and through the limit, save, grow battle into the debt ceiling battle, and then once again into the continuing resolution. So all the way through January through September with the previous speaker, the conservative position, the compromised conservative position was to cut spending down to about $1.47 trillion. So maybe about $150 billion over what is spent this year. If we would cut it by about $150 billion, modest, frankly, not even 1 month's deficit. And we couldn't even get all Republicans to join us there. We couldn't get the previous speaker to join us there. And that was the dollars that the fight was over. Now we were fighting for policy change as well. But really, one has to ask, to your question, and I can't give you an answer, why don't all Republicans truly care about our spending? Why aren't all Republicans truly committed to doing whatever it takes to get our fiscal house in order? Why would we allow this to happen on our watch with the House majority?
Alejandro Mayorkas, I have to ask you about this before I let you go. Well, here is that genius.
Migration, the challenge of displaced people, is a subject that comes up in every single conversation. We have the effects of climate change, poverty, increasing level of authoritarianism, the very many challenges that are at the root cause of the displacement of people around the world.
Okay, so the House is going to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, I believe, and that's fine. Obviously, he's a dirtball who should be impeached. He opened up our border. Is this going to prompt these people to do anything to secure the border, or are they just going to plug in another open borders hack in there?
Well, he is executing the policies of Joe Biden. Joe Biden is intentionally facilitating the border invasion. I went back to the border last week for my 6th time in the 3 years that I've been in Congress, and what struck me was how much effort the administration is applying to try to prevent Texas from securing their border. They are suing Texas and fighting Texas to prevent Texas from executing their own border security. As you know, the administration, Mayorkas, and the president's spokesperson says, "Oh, we don't have the resources, we don't have the personnel. Congress hasn't given it to us." And yet, when Texas tries to stand in the gap, stand in the breach, and protect their citizens, the administration is literally suing them and fighting them to prevent them from doing that. This is on purpose. This is willful. This is intentional. Irreparable harm has been done. Yes, he deserves to be impeached. Yes, the president deserves to be impeached. But the Senate is unlikely to convict, as we know. And so I suspect that it will not continue the policies, or it will change the policies. But what would change it, Jesse, is if we refuse to fund this government that facilitates this border invasion. So we ought to be using this spending fight right now to say, we're going to fund national security, national defense, the essential things that keep Americans safe and secure, and nothing else until the border is secure. That's what we ought to do as Republicans. That's what we've been calling on the Speaker and the House leadership and the entire Republican conference to do. Let's stop funding this government. Let's stop giving them the money that's bankrupting us anyway. Most of the things the administration is doing we don't agree with. Why do we keep giving them money to facilitate this border invasion?
Amen. Congressman, go get them. Rooting for you. We're in your corner over here.